National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Good evening, and it may not be Watergate revisited, but...
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. It's been a tragic end to the long weekend on Victoria's roads.
This is National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Another VFL club sacks its coach in a bitter end to the season. Jeff Kennett keeps the election bubbling with another slanging match, and the young RAAF pilot, whose cool head averted tragedy. Good evening, and Tommy Hafey has flown back home a shattered man after being sacked as coach of the Sydney Swans. It's the end of another controversial chapter in the career of Aussie Rules' most travelled coach. Rob Asprey, who last week broke the news of the likely Hafey sacking, filed this report.
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Human error blamed for the P-car crash on the Glen Waverley line. Good evening. At least 37 people were injured when two commuter trains...
This is National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Exclusive pictures showing the dramatic collapse of the famous London Bridge landmark. A company facing serious charges over a western suburbs in...
Good morning. The Americans are trying to minimise the political...
This is National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Downer and Costello take over as the Liberals dump John Hewson. A diver rescued after being pulled unconscious from the bay. And Melbourne doctors offer hope of a vaccine for breast cancer. Good evening, Alexander.
This is National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Kim Beazley, our new Deputy Prime Minister, as Brian Howe quits. An 82-year-old woman waits 5 hours for an ambulance and rewarding the heroes of a savage dog attack. Good evening. Finance Minister Kim Beazley has just been elected unopposed by the Federal Labor Caucus as Australia's new Deputy Prime Minister. This follows Brian Howe's sudden decision, announced this morning, to step down. He'll quit politics at the next election.
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Tony Lockett facing 27 fraud charges over a stud greyhound. John Brumby's leadership confirmed, but he gets a new deputy. And Hayden back in the side in a Boxing Day test shake-up.
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Shock and disbelief following the death of Princess Diana and her boyfriend in a high-speed car crash in Paris. Good evening. The world has been rocked by the death of Diana, Princess of Wales. She died.
This is National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Despite appeals for clemency, a woman is executed in Texas. The Wharf Union says the web dock dispute is now a political protest and 20 killed in a freak cable car accident. Good evening. Authorities in Texas have shrugged off international appeals and protests and executed murderer Carla Faye Tucker. The 38-year-old who became a born-again Christian in jail and was put to death by lethal injection after all legal appeals had failed.
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
By dawn's early light, a record crowd honours the heroes of war. Veterans cheered by youngsters as the Anzac tradition lives on, and Prime Minister Howard leads the Australian pilgrimage to Gallipoli. Good evening. Also tonight, Essendon kicks away from...
This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Hopes slip away after Singapore rejects another plea to let Van Nguyen live. Leadership tensions ease as the Treasurer hints he's willing to wait. And Greg Norman tees off at his homegrown critics. Good evening. Also tonight, some handiwork. How Melbourne doctors... Fond memories as Mildura begins the long and painful process of saying goodbye. A stabbing victim dies in front of startled rail commuters at a suburban station. And the V8 grid girl, believed to have stolen Wayne Carey's heart.
National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. Also tonight, walking on air, Elisa Camplin's amazing comeback to win bronze at Torino.
Reports of persons or people who have been shot. 5 or 6 shots fired, 3 people down.
One dead, 2 seriously wounded and a killer still at large. A chilling city shooting strikes fear into the heart of Melbourne. Good evening. Those tragic events in the heart of the city dominate our bulletin tonight.
This is 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
An Oakley Greek Orthodox school closed for the day after muck-up vandals bombarded it with eggs. A court clears Jack Thomas of accepting cash from Al-Qaeda. And flowers for the bikie shot dead in Geelong's drive-by attack. Good evening. The man once known as Jihad Jack.
Magpie and Cats fans flood the MCG hoping they'll meet the Saints in the grand final. A Frankston man bashed by thugs accuses police of ignoring him. Panic as an earthquake rattles Bali. And the Phillip Island whale that didn't want to be rescued.
This is 9 News with James Talia.
Good evening. The last spot in the AFL Grand Final is up for grabs tonight at the MCG. The Cats and the Magpies fighting it out for a chance to play St Kilda in next Saturday's decider.
The Police Commissioner defiant over phone tap misconduct claims. The Prime Minister braves mining's hostile heartland in the Wild West. Public exposure, a toxic waste blast for the EPA. And how common painkillers could be doing more harm than good.
This is 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening, Chief Commissioner.
Tonight, families fleeing as brawling street gangs go head-to-head amid Moomba celebrations. Breaking news, 2 people killed in a light plane crash in Victoria's north. A body found in the bottom of a disused mine shaft. A woman tells of how she tried to break up a fight which left 2 men dead. Margie Abbott steps out with her husband after a tumultuous week. And a flock of entrants make a splash in the Birdman Rally.
This is 9 News with Brett McLeod.
Good evening. Police have vowed to crack down on armed gangs who took over city streets during a